Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and I'm here with my special guest, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And so you're responsible for my misery, huh? Tease. I'm kidding you.
Yes, of course. Yeah, probably.
No, you're not. But let's talk about the synthetic telepathy. Let's talk about what you were working on, because there are a lot of people that are suffering from some form of psychotronic warfare that's being deployed across the globe. And I know you're aware of that.
Yeah, psychotronic is different than synthetic telepathy. Mm-hmm. Synthetic telepathy is done with microwave band in the 0.3 to 3 gigahertz. It's a very specific bandwidth. It is a physical thing. Psychotronic is what Bearden would call scalars. Mm-hmm. A scalar is a lesser form of you. For example, a scalar of you would be your shadow in reference to the sun shining it on the ground. It isn't you, but it is a portion of you in a lesser dimensioned system. And so psychotronic weapons would be to use metaphor in the shadow as a weapon to attack you. And a shadow has also been referred to as a demon. It's a lesser dimensioned entity, like an angel is a more dimension than you are, as a metaphor, as a metaphor. And that's what the only real book in magic that had ever been written was the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon. And basically action with spirits, working with demons and angels. And they separated them over the centuries, many different translations. The one I use this century is Mathers from Golden Dawn. It has the Goetia, which is a lesser key of Solomon. It's about the 72 fallen angels. If you look at that, and it all was sigil magic, using magic squares and the relationship of geometry to numbers and words that would lay out a sigil, what you would call a talisman. Right. And that's 19th century magic. That is kind of like where 20th century would be sacred geometry and meditating on cymatics, where you chant across a bowl of water, trying to set up an interference pattern or something. Now, that means you're getting the tonation correctly. Right. Got me?
Oh, yeah. And so, I could call it electronic possession. We have regular demons and this and that, but then there's the man-made demon, which is created by something in the form of covert threat assessment technology.
Oh, I love Saturday Night Live.
No, seriously. Let's get down and dirty with this, because there are people that are being attacked in their own minds with a form of possession based on electronics.
I have some ideas on that I'd like to express here. Okay. Let's try it this way. I was at Liz Kuttner's house when she was abducted in Homestead, Florida. I was working with Mac out of Harvard, and this was a common problem with her, where she would be abducted. I was there during one of the abductions. She came walking back in. It was all bruised and weirded, kind of like something out of Fire in the Sky, and traumatized. And that was when I realized that if it's God, that we'll never be able to know what it is, because it can outmaneuver us in terms of our thought processes and so on. How I stopped the abduction with her is I put a camera on her bed at night. Now, that is how I did it as a magic act. Right. But let's realize that what's happening now in what they call the quickening, the idea that everything's speeding up, technology, our awareness, our evolution, that kind of thing. In fact, Rudolf Steiner would have said man is devolving, actually. So, that's all a question of which way you're going, downhill in the black hole. The idea is that at some level, there's going to be schisms in consciousness on the collective unconscious level, or numinous. And groups of people will feel they're being gang-stalked, or targeted individuals, or alien abduction. I'm seeing this in a variety of different areas. And really, It's not about what's really happening. That's just the way the consciousness is trying to grab it from integrate it from a collective unconscious kind of point of view, like where several people now see a different kind of a reality because the edges of color are changing or whatever. I think it is a breach in the collective unconscious, and some of us get that ride.
Well, I can see that. I mean, there is a as you reach the higher levels of consciousness, you purge, and yeah, you could come across what I call disembodied spirits or this and that. Now, I will tell you,
bad guys out there like bad wolves going to grandma's house. Yes.
Right. But I can just tell you from my own personal experience, I've confirmed the data of this warfare that was designed, and it actually was satellite driven. I confirmed the handler. I confirmed the background of the handler, so it's not in somebody's mind.
No,
I'm not trying to come down on you, but I will tell you that some of this stuff is not based on schisms. Some of this stuff is based on an assault weapon that's designed to harm, control, manipulate, and shut down the psyche and the consciousness of their target. And they call it threat assessment for a reason. Now, go ahead.
The question I have to ask is, what is the intent of that?
The intent is to control, manipulate, to shut down one's higher consciousness and to program. Yes.
Yeah. Why were you selected over?
Because I'm very psychic and I'm really good at what I do. I'm a very, very powerful healer and psychic. Back in 2004, before I was tagged, yeah.
I'm okay. Now, I'm going to suggest a magical ritual that you could do called middle pillar, where you wrap that white light, what was it, Dion Fortune? Psychic self-defense.
Yeah. No, I've done all that stuff. And,
okay. Now, that, theoretically, in terms of, as I understand the physics, that'll stop the nonsense with you.
Okay, well, let me explain something to you. Right now, I just have anomaly signals. But back in 2004, and I'm not going to get into too many specifics about my personal experience, but I will tell you, people were making the signs of the cross when they saw me. There was so much scrambling done. No, that you can laugh, but I had color.
I can just see it. I can just.
No, I'm just telling you that this was a real live feed, real time handler with the synthetic telepathy, by the way, which was satellite driven. It wasn't just one of these little microwaves or a gang stalking event. I confirmed the data and I confirmed the background with the guy who was involved, who was my handler, who actually has clearance. So, when you look at these things, it's infuriating to me, and I'm not mad at you at all, don't get me wrong, but I get very ticked if people think it's part of a psychic ascension process. No, it's not.
The problem is that technology, I developed that.
Well, I don't think you developed all of it, because Robert Duncan developed some of the psychotronic program templates. If you talk to him, you guys should collaborate.
Psychotronic is not synthetic telepathy. Psychotronic works with scalar physics.
Right.
Microwave technology that I'm doing works with your temporal lobes.
Right, and
this was an Alan Frey that discovered that man has other senses besides the normal 5, one of which is in the temporal lobes. And what if you hit it with a certain bandwidth of frequencies? It causes them to swell, and they begin to ring, and you can heterodyne voices. And so synthetic telepathy is about hearing voices in your head, like.
Well, it's a transmission. I understand when you call it voices. See, I have a different. And you worked on this a long time ago, right? What year was that?
Well, in the early 70s.
Okay, well, things have changed since then.
That technology is off the shelf.
Oh, it's off the shelf. Yeah. Well, there's that.
I can tell you how to take a simple microwave oven and take the gutters from your house and harass your neighbor.
Well, I know there's a low order gang stalking. I'm well aware of that, but I'm also aware of the satellite driven technology, which is merged in underground areas with artificial intelligence and supercomputers. Now, your information, yes, is valid, but there are other aspects. What you created was just the beginning of something that is an unstoppable beast. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot with this, but I will tell you the stuff that I was exposed to was real time synthetic telepathy with a live handler, which was interfaced onto artificial intelligence in a supercomputer. It was not microwave driven. So something to chew on for you. And I'm not saying this in any negative way. I have the utmost respect for you.
And I know I don't know what you're talking about. I know that Commander Solo is the first ordnance that the United States uses when it goes to war with.
Yeah, I know that. They drive around their nice little whatever they have with their big gold.
Well, Commander Solo is an aircraft with 257 computers heterodyned into a supercomputer that pumps out what's called cloning emotions. And that you can convince people. That's how the first Iraqi war, there were hundreds of Iraqi coming out of the ground, putting their rifles in a big piles, and there's just 2 GIs.
Right.
And how did they do that? Branch Davidian. that kind of thing. That is the technology I can talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And where they tried to globalize it using HARP, it didn't work. And what did happen, I can give you an example of what HARP is doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's causing the anomalies of why you see ripples going across the feed on the moon, and why they're suggesting that the moon is I don't know what is a hologram. It's not real because you can see the edges on that thing and the way it moves across that. That's HARP doing that. It's actually changing the atmospheric reflection of light, and it causes that anomaly that you're seeing on the moon. And that's a vector that that would be the way I would approach trying to respond on these conspiracy things that are going on. I will also say that the moon is probably not real. It's artificial. I would also, why?
Right.
It doesn't even obey normal laws of physics in terms of a rotating body. Mm-hmm. For the gravity and things that it has, there is no way it could be in that stationary position. None of the other moons and any of the planets do that. Mm-hmm. And that's because, I had it on my website. There's some kind of artificial base of some kind manufactured on the other side of the moon. Is that us? Well, I don't know what it is. I haven't been there. I don't know. I can say it. And so with the satellite pictures that we've got now, and as military, I am not given the disclosure I used to. But at one time, I was a reader. I could go into certain vaults without a need to know, and that's what I did, try to connect dots when I couldn't figure out what was something going on. And that's the part I want to say right now. I am really good at what I do, and I know I don't know. How does that work?
Well, complexity, I guess.
Well, I mean, that's why I think something else is going on.
Well, there's a lot going on, and I have so much respect for you. So don't get me wrong when I talk to you. I'm not trying to talk down to you in any form of design, but I do know what I know because of my own personal experience as a test pilot. And I will ask you one thing: you did go to Area 51. What exactly did you experience there?
I can't talk about it. No, wait a minute. It's not like that. It's not like that. I can't talk about it because there's some kind of a mental block in my mind.
So you have maybe missing time?
I've gone debriefing. Okay, what happened for me was my work was on the West Coast and did not involve alien technology. Back when I was doing it, we knew about aliens, but we were more worried about what the Russians were doing. And that's a fact. And so with that said, we knew about Area 51. We'd heard about Roswell. Whether it was a weather balloon or one of those devices that Japan sent out. We had several that landed here in Oregon that were biological weapons, it was after Hiroshima. And so who knows what Roswell was about. However, I personally have seen artifacts. I've actually done 2 studies on artifacts. I did one with Wilbur Franklin at the University of Chicago in their vaults. And so I know there's something going on out there because I've seen technology that isn't us. Mm-hmm. Now, with that said, what's going on? I was asked, apparently Area 51 has an alien that they traded. This is the story I was given. They traded at Roswell when they had 2 dead aliens and a 3rd dying alien. When the dying alien died, they did an autopsy on it, and then a 4th alien appeared in one of the bodies. Why? Because they could apparently resurrect those aliens on a physical plane. They had that kind of technology. And so this was during the period of Harry Truman. And that's what Majestic was set up with, an alien called Krill. Now, actually, I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't even briefed, but apparently this entity asked to meet me for whatever reason. Might be for this very moment right now, who knows. Mm-hmm. But I went and I walked in this room, and there was a table in front of me with probably maybe 60 documents in a pile. And I just started reading them, grabbing one after another without even knowing what I'm looking at, just grabbing the documents, trying to get it into my optical memory, when the door opened. And what I saw was a humanoid form that was probably 7 feet tall, had a long neck, was feminine feeling. And that's where I discovered and became first familiar with synthetic telepathy. It's how she was talking to me in my mind. I couldn't figure out how she did that. That's what drove me to do
it. Wasn't a microwave, was it, Richard?
I'm sorry?
It wasn't a microwave, was it?
I think it was in the 0.3 to 3 gigahertz. We do generate that signal on a very weak level with certain kinds of amorphous semiconductors in our body. And it's a temporal lobe thing where it's like another a way of communicating in space where you don't need sound.
Right. Yeah, I know it very well.
Okay, and what they do is you heterodyne. And because the microwave band causes the piezoelectric crystals to heat ever so slightly in ringing, they begin to ring. And when they ring, you can heterodyne actually do voices overlay on the signal, and you can actually hear it in your brain. It does not go through the ear. And that is what is called synthetic telepathy.
Well,
and then a whole host of weapons, a bunch of them, came out of that. And I sent you a paper on that, on all the different ones that I was part of.
Yeah.
And that bibliography. And that's something.
Okay, well, I will tell you, and I know this for a fact, it has been modified, and they don't need microwaves to do that. So we'll talk about that sometime. And I'll tell you point blank, I'm asking you, do you have inserted screen memories by chance? Do you think that perhaps that you have things?
Yeah, there's a block there. What happened is when I was in there for 1 hour, and I don't remember what happened. I just remember the piece and something, very feminine, talking to me, and inside my head, and I dialogued it back, and when it was over, they then spent more than 8 hours in debriefing, trying to, with hypnosis and this scopolamine and something else I forget, trying to debrief me and what I remembered. And the problem is there's some kind of a hypnotic block that blocks my head like that. I can't get at it. It's like it's there.
Right.
And that's all I can talk about.
That's all right.
So that's my total alien experience.
Oh.
I have seen UFOs in the sky. I can tell you the way I can identify a UFO is that it does not move in a smooth line. It jerks as if it's jumping in space from one point to another. It's disconnected that way. And you can look at a UFO, if you're looking at a UFO, and it will appear as if it's coming straight at you. And then when you look away, then it's where it was, kind of thing. It's an interesting phenomena that has to do with consciousness on levels that we have not yet described in physics.
Exactly. And with that being said, you've talked about ESP now, and we've talked about psychic ability. So we are, most people do have a natural telepathic design that they have fully activated.
That's
right.
The deal, yeah.
And so then, so technically, without the illusion of microwaves or this and that, once people start enhancing their psychic abilities, they can literally become more and more telepathic. That's a given. That's a universal.
Let's talk about what telepathy is and what it is not. There's ESP is broken into 5 categories. There's telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, radiesthesia, and astral projection. Those are the 5 categories, and they're all variations. In terms of clairvoyance, it can be not necessarily something you see. It could be clairaudience or clairascension. In terms of precog, it could be retrog, where you see something, an event that happened in the past, with accurate detail. And my understandings of the enteric nervous system, your gut, is that all that place is connected beyond space and time. That has led me to the concept that there's other minds in our body besides the brain. The brain is basically there to make your beliefs and values true. That's basically, it's the logic thing. And the problem is when I was training SEALs, I wanted them to think from their gut, because when they came from the gut, now they're somehow beyond space-time in terms of decision-making. They're intuitive. That's a good word. And that allowed them to end up doing what they're supposed to be doing, which means they didn't get killed.
Right.
There it is. And what ESP is then is probably the first level of awareness working like most animals from the gut, closer to spirit. And then as we use our upper brain, we somehow become ill or something and create these illusions called reality.
Right, which is really a false reality after all.
It's not any false. You're creating it. So
well, yeah, that's true. But then there's stuff that we create, and then once again, there's things that have been created on our behalf.
Well, now that's the part that is what I call distractions. And if they can fool you, like the Borg, saying that resistance is futile, that then is the first step toward self-awareness, where you have control of your reality, and that the boogeyman can be made to go away, because apparently we are God's favored. That is what distinguishes us from the angels, if you were, the superior or advanced beings, whatever. In fact, the idea that because you have this ability to center in, if you learn how to listen to the higher, 9/10 of your cerebral cortex, self-realization. By the way, that's only halfway to God. Yeah, the getting union with self is when you merge with the collective unconscious, and you and I are one, and I am the walrus. Cuckoo, cuckoo.
You do make me laugh, and I'll give you that much.
Well, I mean, I know this place.
Oh, of course you do. No, I know.
I know this place, and what I'm trying to say is everybody gets it. So now what are you going to do with that knowledge?
Well, I think what people need to do is take the helm and become, manifest their own realities in alignment with a higher self, oversoul, superconscious, in my opinion. But,
personal responsibility.
Right, exactly. But once again, now, and you're right, the distractions can take on many forms. It can be a covert thing. It can be regular mainstream television. It can be this crazy government that we see globally. I mean, that's all a distraction.
That one down the street.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a lot of things. So what do? Put them all in the cornfield? Do we wish them all in the cornfield like a nice Twilight Zone episode? I mean,
no, that's Field of Dreams. No,
remember the Twilight Zone?
Yeah,
where he wished him in the cornfield.
Rod Serling. Yeah, we've got control of the vertical, and we've got control of the horizontal.
Oh, that's the outer limits. But yes, they're all they're all good. They're all good.
Well, it's howdy doody time.
Oh, wow.
The whole thing is a distraction, and it's time for all of us to understand that we're at the end game now. All of us. And so, it's time to get off the couch and do the work.
I agree. So what's your take on disclosure? And I'm not talking just extraterrestrials. I'm talking every single bit of covert technology that's used to militarize or weaponize a body, a mind, anything that's being deployed across the globe. What is your take on a disclosure? I think that would solve every problem we have on this world. Really?
Well, yeah, how did that, when the head fell off the body and a bunch of ants ran out?
Well, it would be nice to have that kind of eliminated.
It's, I don't have the answers there. What I am is in discovery, like you. And I believe now, and it's arbitrary, that I have some divine right. And that part is what I'm going to try to exercise in terms of education and continually educating myself. That is what I do get to take with me.
Oh, absolutely. And do you lecture at colleges at all?
I did. I don't. I'm 70. I used to. I taught at Harvard, taught at the UW.
That's awesome.
Evergreen. I was first faculty at Evergreen. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it would have been nice to hear you lecture.
What's that?
Would have been nice to hear you lecture. I mean, you're phenomenal with your information.
Oh, well.
I mean, I do know
No,
you hold back a lot. You say you've never really retired, right? So you're still kind of contracted, aren't you?
I have a handler, and
Yeah, of course you do.
actually, he now refers to himself as a wrangler.
Mm.
I have carte blanche in some areas because instinctually, what I want to do is what they realize will probably be the right thing to do. That's where my gift was when I came to a fork in the road. I always somehow instinctively knew to go this way, not that way, that kind of thing, and that is thinking with the gut. That's ESP, and everybody's got it. What I did is I developed some protocols. What happened was Dr. Milan Riesel was from Czechoslovakia. He was being chased by a bunch of Bulgarians. He got all freaked out because they were scientists, being stalked by these thugs, and it was scary. And so he defected to the U.S. They brought him into Seattle, and I debriefed him, and then that became the protocol, the first protocol for Navy SEALs. They were not selected for their ability to blow up bridges or how buff they were. We could do that. We could train that. Mm-hmm. What we wanted were people that were in touch with their decision making. And that's why we call this critical decision making protocols. Mm-hmm. That's how to think with the gut. Right. And once you learn how to tie in there, you're outside space and time, and your level of survival is way beyond statistical. Mm-hmm. In fact, I got challenged. It's in my book. I got challenged at Duke University. The Foundation for the Study of Man put on a psychic tournament. James Hurtak, Faircoast, Sybil Leak, Gene Dixon, they were all there. And they brought me in to demonstrate the protocols that we had developed in the laboratory, and I won the thing by 3 orders of magnitude. And it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'm not psychic.
So who is?
Well, everybody is.
No, I mean, but how did you win then if you say you're not psychic?
I used my model, which is a kind of consciousness equation for consciousness. Mm-hmm. I developed a set of protocols on how to, including NLP, so that I could teach my SEALs how to go through interrogation, that kind of thing.
Right.
Training to control autonomic functions. One of the protocols I did was just breath control, where the experience of the martial art was that of Tai Chi. Everything slowed down. Mm-hmm. Breath control, if you do it correctly, will give you an altered state that holds between falling on your face because you're out cold and seeing everything in slow motion. And it turns out if you can hold that place like you do, you experience, then your martial arts becomes normal.
Very true.
That's what made super soldiers, is with these toys or enhancements or protocols that, jump-started things. I can take you and give you the brain of someone meditating for 30 years in just less than 2 using brain drivers, frequency following function. It isn't as well developed, but I can put you in the same place someone meditating for 30 years is in.
Well, I hate to tell you, but before I was hit with the program in 2004, I was probably one of those people who appeared to be meditating for 30 years. So I was pretty amped up. Yeah.
Pretty amped up for you.
Yeah.
I was really lucky right out of the gate. I started looking for real saints because, in fact, a teacher can only take you as far as that teacher themselves have been. Mm-hmm. And so you go out trying to find the most impeccable teacher you can. When I didn't find answers in physics, I came out of graduate school. One of the first things I did is I went up to New York City College and studied under Gershom Scholem and learned Old Hebrew and Greek and did my own Bible translations so that I became a Hermetic Kabbalist. Nice. And what I do now is that's the form of magic, that I'm a Hermetic Kabbalist. And basically, that is a filing system that I've associated with Jungian psychotherapy so that I can integrate these things like using the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, the idea of how sounds and words interconnect for your so-called frequency vibration thing. Right. That's chanting. And to realize that's Hebrew. And that's Hebrew. And to realize that the dolphins' language was 10 times more efficient.
Wow.
Now that's a cetacean mammal that I think is more evolved than man.
Mm-hmm.
Higher on his food chain is orca, who's got a cerebral cortex that's, there's a mammal that probably is God. Not our God, but God being defined as being able to go somewhere man will never know.
Yeah, I call them record keepers, but yeah, they seem like ancients.
Or whatever, yeah. They have many forms. This new movie, Noah, has the Nephilim looking like a bunch of rocks. It's interesting, Noah.
Have you seen it then?
I'm sorry?
You saw the movie?
Yeah, I did, yes, a couple days ago, 2 days ago. Yeah. And it's interesting because their take on it is a little different and goes back to older texts in terms of what the Nephilim appeared and what they did in terms of helping Noah build the ark.
Very interesting.
Yeah. The history of Earth is, like the science guy, Bill Nye, and you just get a grip, these people trying to say that the Earth is only 2,000 years old or something like that. It's crazy.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's what I mean by
how can you turn your back on science?
Well, what's crazy is why are they having so much censorship with when it comes to truth? I mean, everything is a lie. So what can you believe anymore? Quite honestly,
well,
I mean,
that's because the truth lies within yourself.
Absolutely.
And while it might be different for each of us, that's God's will. That means we're only seeing one part of the fence. The other part is probably painted the color you think it is. See, so there's ways of understanding your relationship to the scheme of things, and that part is why I'm so drawn with children. They are more close to indigenous than even aborigines. They're brighter than us. I've met Temple Grandin. There's nothing wrong with her at all. In fact, autism can be seen as a gift, not a dysfunction. And so, I've got in our town here in Grants Pass, Oregon, we have a thing called Spark, where the autistic kids do bedding plants for the city. And how is it that autistic children can do better bedding plants than adults, master gardeners? How does that work? Right. Cloud Atlas had the idea of mentorship, where the kids teach each other. The third graders teach the first graders, and so on. And basically, then what a master gardener is a facilitator. And actually, when I was down in Mexico, rather than use master gardeners, when I was in Puebla, what I used were a bunch of graduate students in transpersonal psychology. It worked really good. I had 4-year-old kids growing wildflowers and then going into the streets of Mexico City and feeding the homeless. And if you don't understand what it did for those children in terms of empowering, and what's going to happen next down there in terms of food as an infrastructure. Right. That's the importance of doing your little victory garden.
Oh, I love victory gardens. Yeah. And with that being said, you have your own garden, right? You've been a farmer for a while.
Yeah, I'm learning how to get into my garden. It's a small steps alley kind of thing. The first year you learn how to plow the field up. The second year you learn how to grow some vegetables. The third year you got a bunch of vegetables, so you learn how to can. The fourth year you learn how to eat out of the cupboards. It's a slow process of becoming sovereign.
Yep, absolutely. More people need to be doing that. Without a doubt. Yeah. Well, everything's becoming privatized. I mean, the water supply is going to be privatized soon enough. Pretty soon it'll be illegal to be alive.
Yeah, and they'll charge you for the air you breathe.
I mean, technically, probably.
I wonder what's really in chemtrails and how they are affecting our physical bodies. This is a form of mind control on an extinction level event. The chemtrails and the barium oxide and so on, all of that is affecting our timber here in Oregon.
Yep.
We have anthropologists, farmers going out into the woods and showing the kill.
Yeah. We have that here too.
Yeah.
In Colorado. I've never seen it like this before because, looking at the forest, it's changed so much.
In Mexico, they didn't even know about it until I pointed it out because the aircraft goes through at 4 a.m, and by sunrise, the clouds are already formed. And while they look a little different than anything we've ever seen before, they didn't notice that it wasn't real.
That's a shame. Yeah, a lot of people don't pay attention to that. And a lot of people still to this day will dispute the fact that there are chemtrails. I mean, they'll just say,
well,
"Oh no."
the evidence now is so overwhelming, and I have to ask why.
Mm-hmm. Why they're not getting it?
No, why they're doing it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it seems to me like they're trying to wipe out a good portion of people on this world.
Well, there is that prime directive. That is too many people on Earth. That's, I don't get that part. I don't get that part. We've got the asteroid belt. We've got the possibilities of seeding the stars. There's so many stars that it doesn't have to be BTUs in to work force out. They're trying to turn us into a matrix.
I agree.
Business, and the whole thing is based around illusion. The actual war going on between the so-called Illuminati, a bunch of Jesuits in Rome for minimum wage at $12 an hour, battling China at $2 an hour. That's your New World Order battle going on. And that's what it's really all about. As simple as that.
If it's just as simple as that, then why is it happening? Why don't we just say no and put these people in prison?
Well, okay, here's a good website, hangthebankers.com. Iceland hung 28 of their bankers, and France just last week hung a bunch of Rothschilds.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that for real?
Yeah, hangthebankers.com.
Well, you know what?
Iceland is very cool. It is, that what they did is they fulfilled their campaign promises. They hung the bankers and then gave the money from the banks back to the people on their homes.
That's good. Yeah, I like Iceland.
It's a little different than what's happening in Europe.
Well, and look what's happening here in the United States.
There you go.
Yeah. And what's your take on the transhumanism agenda?
Kurzweil. You're talking about Kurzweil? Yeah. Well, that's that new Johnny Depp movie, Transcendence.
I know.
I think Lucy's even better than.
Oh yeah, well, it's all just a mirror image of what people have gone through as test pilots and test subjects.
And it's the imagination is reality. That is what's possible is probable.
Right. But then there's always the need to weaponize.
What's that?
Then there's always the need to weaponize technology, even if it's
that's the first thing is how do we use it to protect ourselves? Fear, survival. There's other aspects in the hologram, in terms of grace and charity and whatever, love. It's I think there are other non-local hearts and non-local guts. I think there's more going on than the physical plane. And the fact that our gut, it's enteric with neurotransmitters and all of that, and that's where a lot of first input decision making occurs before it even goes to the logic brain. I think there's more going on, and that we're going to realize at some point that we are a multi-dimensioned entity with, the stag and the unicorn in the forest.
Oh, absolutely.
Soul and spirit within matter. Yeah.
I agree. Well, they tell, if you follow ascension work, it's exactly that. It's multidimensional mastery. It's ascended mastery through higher consciousness, but we're multidimensional beings, and we're acknowledging that. And
so I went through a big deal just before I did the Coast to Coast interview last month. What happened basically was I was doing email, and I started to see how one email to the next was directing my thought of where I was going with my own mind. And I laughed out loud and went through what we would call a samadhi state. And while I was going through it and laughing at the joy, that's a good word, joy, I tried to think when was the last time that I experienced that high. And if I thought back to that moment when I graduated and I took my cap and I threw it in the air in abandon. And it was more than that. And that's what opened the door then. It made me remember a past life where I had experienced that same level of exaltation. And that opened another door and took me to the next place where I've never been before. And when I started getting that place, I started realizing what's actually happening. It's all in the moment. Alan Watts said, that little palm floats in the air, and he said, if you touch a single pollen twice in one day, the second time you touch it, you will experience a moment of infinite bliss. It will only last for a moment, and then you won't remember it. My event at Area 51 was kind of like that. I remember that moment, and I can't remember it.
Well, maybe you will at some point in the continuum if you're supposed to, right?
Well, memory is an interesting thing, and it's basically time is a duration of consciousness. It's the way you store memory. And so to remember past lives and the interconnectedness of event points, or what we call landscape, that place is where timelessness, and you go into what we call sacred time over the profane. And that's what we're all seeking, that moment of flow. And when you're there, that is what Aleister Crowley calls true will.
Right. Why do you think he had such a bad reputation? I mean, I
know. A beast himself. That's the way life.
Well, I know he was into some dark stuff, but seriously, why do you think he was?
Well, he was a Victorian and was in your face. I mean, anybody that tattooed 666 on his bald forehead just to cause trouble, that's got to be a great man. He was insightful. And if you want to get an image of him, think of it as a trim and Capaldi that talked with the, not the, way of saying things. And he was like that. And he was Victorian. He was brilliant, of course. But a teacher can only take you as far as they themselves have gone. And he died as a drug addict in Hastings. So there it is in all of his brilliance, and why I'm not actually a Crowleyite.
Right. Well, his rituals. Well, his rituals were successful. I mean, he did open up some gateways.
Oh, well, yeah, and there's nothing like it. And what I'm hoping to do is move it forward using a bunch of toys.
Well, yeah, but what does that? Now, with that being said, what does that do with everybody else? What does that do to the rest of the Mass Collective when you're opening gateways, and what are you bringing in, and how are they going to affect everyone else?
Okay, using Mora and Indomet, German acupuncture equipment. I wrote 3 books on this. I can, by doing non-invasive electrodes on the top of your forehead, talk to specific neurotransmitters with wave shaping, and I can change your sex.
That's like lovely. That. Great.
Well, no, I mean, it's like a type of costume. You put a thing on called the wire, and you're going to decide, I want to go out as acid, and I'm going to do it as a man. And you dial it in. And that's how close you are already to androgyny. It's that how is it? A metaphor. There was this group of aliens, we'll call them reticulin. They're little carrot-like blue boxes. And they were studying men because they could not, quote, understand how men could exist as a life form when the difference between being normal and psychotic could be measured in micrograms. The metaphor of the fine-tuning of the possibilities of diversity and the way information folds into and out of itself. The brain is way more than we realize, and actually is kind of like a 4-dimensional hologram of 5-space. You learn how to go into different places of the brain, not just bliss meditation, but let's say going down into the Wernicke correction with the Mars Project. That's an interesting place. Now, with that, you change the view of reality. It literally is changed because you're coming from a different filter.
Right. Well, that makes perfect sense. And with that being said, I have a friend of mine who I haven't talked to in a very long time, but I gave him a special backstage permit to call the show tonight. And his name is Jerry. Hi, Jerry.
Hey, Solaris. How are you?
I'm great. And I know you probably have a question for Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
I do. Forgive me. I just got home from work, so I didn't listen to. I didn't get a chance to listen to any of the show, but it's such a pleasure to speak with you, Dr. Miller.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no big deal. Cool.
We were talking about just about everything, Jerry. So.
Yeah, we've been all over the map. Yeah.
Well, I'll catch it on the I'll revisit the
rebound. Let's do
exactly.
the time.
Exactly. I guess if I had one question for you, you had indicated something to the effect in your past interviews of that even you don't know what's going on. But what is your sense of what's going on? I mean, what does your gut tell you?
We're at war, and the war is happening inside each of us, and that the alien part of man, because he's not Homo sapien, he's now Homo sapien sapiens, and has all kinds of other genetics in him besides humanity, that there is a war going on, and the battle is being fought right as we speak, and that if you have a choice, that's what made you God's favored, is that you have a choice between this and that, and why you would choose this or that determines how well you're in touch with self, and that your job here is to discover your purpose. James Hillman has written a book on that called The Soul's Code, In Search of Character and Calling. The character is kind of like spirituality. It's the nooks and crannies on how you go about doing something, because everybody's different, because of their experience and life stories cause the nooks and crannies, the way you would respond to something, death of a child, whatever. The purpose is why you're here. And what Crowley called magical memory is when you finally connect, like I was giving that little story just a minute ago about internal landscapes and enlightenment places.
Right.
Yeah, okay. That place is where it all happens. And it needs to have a ritual for it to be assimilated and integrated into the collective of yourself. And that part is what is the purpose of the ritual aspects of magic. Magic is an art form like sculpting or painting, and it is the art of changing consciousness at will. You can change the movie. It's what is discovering why it wants to be this over that. And Crowley said that if you're doing your true will, none will say nay. That means the universe wants it to happen. And so what you do is watch yourself, witness, on when you're not having to fight something, it just unfolds for you.
Well, I have to tell you, I've actually done that, where I've acted on my true will, not my free will, but I've acted on my true will, what's in my gut and what I feel. And it truly is, it's like magic.
I know, there you go. That's exactly why
I couldn't believe it was that easy.
Well, that's the part of distraction of keeping your eye on the ball. That's it's a new car. That craziness that's why they call them sannyasins. When the holy man gives up his worldly possessions and walks naked into the world to allow the world to give it what it wants. And that is the true will place. Mm-hmm. And in terms of apocalypse and Fukushima and chemtrails and invasion of aliens and gang stalking and Rothschilds, they're all distractions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would have to agree, because I remember you said something to the effect of, I kept waiting for the rapture and it never happened.
Oh, it never came.
I was waiting for the rapture too, and it never happened. And then
yeah, it's all right. Sitting there, I saw that in Checkered Demon in Zap Comics when it shows the biker sitting on a cloud holding a bunch of clouds. He's saying, "What
right.
that Checkered Demon's off down the road with his motorcycle." That's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I have to tell you that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no.
No, you go ahead.
Well, that's the place you want to sense in yourself. And while it might seem to be in conflict with someone else, realize that God's will is beyond our knowledge base on that. And so while the conflict might
Right.
that still, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.
Yep, absolutely.
I completely understand. And the one thing that you had said before about everything happens for a reason and everything,
Oh, and everything leads to something better.
That has been my mantra, and it works like magic. I couldn't believe it.
Well,
I mean,
it's internal landscape. What that does is sets up the internal landscape of health inside your body by structuring water. And the cup is either half full or it's half empty. Which is it? And your choice takes you into different places of health.
Indeed.
And Jerry, with that being said, we're almost getting ready to wrap this up, but I just want to thank you for calling.
I'm sorry about that, Solaris.
No, I'm great that you called in. I wish you had called in earlier.
I couldn't, like I said, I just got home, so, but I'm so very pleased that I got a chance to call in, and thank you both very much.
Oh, thank you. It's cool. Thank you. Actually, it's rewarding for me to realize that what I'm saying, everybody's getting. I really like that place because I've taken a long time to get to this place of net or new, of realization of how the thing works. And it's going to take all of us to get out of here. In other words, I don't get to leave until you do your work. That's a metaphor. I'm stuck here until you do it. That's a metaphor.
All right. Well, thank you, Jerry, for calling in.
Oh, thank you,
Calling
Solaris.
anytime.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Thank you very much.
You take care. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye. Yeah, Jerry's a good egg. And
you had a couple of them. They've coming at me at Facebook and other places.
Yeah, well, I really want to thank you for being on the show tonight. It's been
my pleasure.
It's been fantastic, and I hope I wasn't too abrupt with some of those.
No.
Okay.
I'm going to do some therapy with you if you'd like. Have you ever done
lovely.
Well, no, hypnotherapy. Have
you man, you have a handler. I want to know who your handler is before you come near me.
Yeah.
I'll be in an altar in 2 days with that.
My ex-wife, Iona, known as the Icicle of ISIS.
Funny. Now, you say she was CIA, right? Or still is?
Yeah, she's counterintelligence.
Okay,
her partner is Luttrell. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But, it's a rarefied atmosphere. Actually, none of us really have the big picture.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think...
means that's something else going on here.
Right. Do you think that these CIA people are automatically programmed with MKUltra? The employees?
No, I think that they've experimented on people, possibly you, and that there's someone else. It's, shell game on who's doing what. And the focus on mind control, really, you have free will in that sense of it. You just get confused and distracted. And when you have to pay rent, it's a difficult thing to realize that money isn't real.
Yep.
And so it's a distraction, but it's one that is very irritating, like a sore. And so I think that our time with money is shortly over.
Good.
I don't think we're going to be using a monetary standard shortly. I have a barter. I don't know. We have in Oregon the barter fair in the Rainbow family, and that is the big deal out here. And that is how I'm setting up bunkers interfacing each other in an infrastructure. Should the grid go down, there'll be food and shit like that available, water. Not with FEMA. FEMA, oh man, FEMA will be like the Hotel California.
Yeah, I'm not planning on the Roach Motel. Not in my.
Well, you check in, but you. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. We're just about getting ready to get out of here. And when is your book available? When's it coming out?
Well, I have a bunch of books at oak-publishing.com. I had 4 new titles out this year.
Excellent.
This last year, and this year I'm in the process of getting 10 new titles up. Sequels to certain books. The Non-Local Mind will be one this year.
Nice.
Power Tools for the 21st Century and the Workbook are last year's work. That's the book 2 in the 3-book series toward the evolution of consciousness.
Awesome. That's fantastic work you're doing, and I so appreciate you being on tonight.
My pleasure.
I look forward to having you back, by the way, so I can razz you some more.
Yeah.
But I do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. I certainly did. And like I said, Dr. Miller is phenomenal when it comes down to it. You're a wellspring of data. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And thanks, Jerry, for calling in, everybody in the chat room. And stay tuned for the fabulous show called Shiny Side Out with David Dunn, Jerry McKee, coming up next, of course, to sail you on into the night. And we've got maybe just a couple minutes here left. Do you have any final words or anything you'd like to bring up real quick?
No, it's past my bedtime. I would say, we are, the battle now is within yourself. And in order to change this world, you're going to have to change yourself. And it's time to do that. Foods you choose to eat will make your consciousness different, like GMOs, things like that.
Yeah, organic. And also, what's a good, do you sleep with your head to the north? This is a very strange question. It's curious.
Do I look to the north? I have done it all different ways, and I haven't determined yet which way I like it best. One of the things I do is keep my head away from a lot of electrical circuits. And most people put their head up next to their clock, radio, and television, and other weird things like that. Mm-hmm. That will mess you up.
Yeah, definitely. And also, you don't have implants, do you?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, maybe you have some from Area 51 or something.
You can take out these nanofibers and other things using a taser. It will fry them. Electrostatic fields will burn out most implants.
Don't try this at home. Have a controlled environment for that, would you? That just sounds, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but that is how you burn them out.
Well.
90,000 volts, electrostatic, usually across the chest, not...
All right, you guys, don't try that at home. But thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you so much, Dr. Miller. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Listening to Revolution Radio.